A storm hangs over the courthouse like it knows the secrets buried inside, and as the doors swing open, the entire Sister Wives family steps into a battle none of them are prepared for. You can feel the tension raw, electric, dangerous, because today isn't about who stayed loyal or who left the marriage. Today is about who finally tells the truth first. Because once the first lie cracks, everything they've hidden for decades is about to explode in front of a judge, a jury, and the world. If you're ready for the kind of drama even the cameras never caught, stay right here because things are about to get darker, deeper, and far more shocking than anyone expects. And before we dive in, tell me in the comments, whose side will you be on when this is all over? The courthouse doors close with a heavy thud behind the Brown family, sealing them inside a world where whispers echo louder than footsteps and every emotion feels magnified under the cold fluorescent lights. And as the narrator's voice glides in, friendly but tense, we see Cody pacing with the kind of restless energy that makes everyone around him uncomfortable. His jaw tight, his fingers drumming against his thigh like he's preparing for a battle he didn't train for, while Christine stands a few feet away with her arms crossed, trying to look steady but unable to hide the tremble in her breath, and Janelle moves between them like a silent buffer, her eyes scanning the hall as if she's counting every exit, every angle, every possible way this day could go wrong, and Mary stands alone near the wall, staring at her hands like she's holding something fragile, maybe hope, maybe regret. And Robin clutches a stack of papers close to her chest, blinking fast as if she's preparing to cry even before the courtroom doors officially open, and the narrator tells us that today isn't a divorce hearing or a custody dispute. It's something messier, bigger, a case built on secrets buried years ago, a case Christine filed not out of revenge but out of fear, claiming that something in their family's past needs to be exposed before it destroys more lives. And as the bailiff steps out and calls their names, the whole group moves like pieces on a chessboard, each one stepping forward with a different weight on their shoulders. And when they enter the courtroom, the air feels thick, like old paper, old memories, and old resentments blending together, refusing to stay quiet anymore. And the judge, a sharp-eyed woman with a silver streak in her hair, watches them with a calm expression that somehow makes everything feel even more intense. Because she's the kind of judge who misses nothing, not a flinch, not a half-truth, not a glance exchange between people who used to call themselves family. And if you think this day is already tense, trust me, what's coming next will pull you even deeper. The opening statements begin, and Christine's attorney rises first, a composed woman who speaks slowly, carefully, almost surgically, laying out the foundation of their case. Years of emotional manipulation, financial inconsistencies, and a secret agreement allegedly signed between Cody and Robin that the other wives were never told about. An agreement that transferred more than just property, but power, influence, and the future direction of the entire family. And as she speaks, Christine keeps her eyes fixed on the table, her fingers gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles turn white, and the moment she glances up and sees Cody looking away from her, something in her expression cracks. Not with anger, but with a quiet disappointment that hurts deeper than shouting ever could. On the other side, Cody's lawyer stands, buttoning his suit jacket with theatrical confidence, and he counters the opening claims with a booming voice, insisting that Christine is fabricating narratives out of bitterness, that she left willingly, that she wasn't pushed or manipulated, and that the so-called secret agreement was a legal necessity, not a betrayal, something the family would have discussed openly if Christine hadn't isolated herself emotionally long before the paperwork existed. And this sparks a soft gasp from Janelle, who drops her gaze as if she's just heard a truth she's not ready to face, while Robin blinks hard, her lips pressed together, fighting tears that threaten to break her carefully controlled composure. If you're still with me, stay close, because the cracks in their stories are about to widen. When the first witness is called, it's Mary, unexpected, quiet, stepping up with her shoulders slightly curved inward as if she's bracing for impact, and the courtroom falls into a hush as she raises her right hand and swears to tell the truth, though her voice wavers on the last word and she sits down with a small exhale, a woman who has lived years in the background suddenly pushed into the spotlight. The attorney asks her simple questions first, dates, relationships, household dynamics, and she answers softly, sometimes pausing too long as she tries to phrase things in a way that doesn't hurt anyone, because Mary has always been someone who swallows her pain to keep the peace. But today, the judge wants honesty, not politeness. And when they ask her whether she knew about the secret agreement, Mary hesitates, her eyes darting toward Cody for a brief second, and the room feels colder, heavier, waiting for her next word. Finally, she says she heard something but wasn't included in the discussion, and the attorney pushes gently. Did that make you feel excluded? Brea and Mary's throat tightens as she whispers, I was excluded long before that. And the courtroom absorbs that sentence like a wound reopening in real time. Cody shifts sharply in his seat, whispering something to his lawyer, while Robin covers her mouth with her hand, eyes glassy, and Christine looks away, her jaw trembling because hearing Mary say it out loud makes all of them confront the truth they avoided for years. And what Mary says next, it changes everything. She explains that in the final years, decisions were made without her, conversations carried on behind closed doors, plans formed that the rest of the family, especially Christine, never had full access to, and when asked directly whether she believed the agreement was intentionally hidden, Mary stares at the table for a long moment before saying, I don't know if it was meant to hurt us, but it did, and the room holds its breath. The judge leans forward slightly, scribbling something down, and the narrator's voice lowers, friendly but tense, explaining that this testimony, quiet as it is, lands like a heavy stone on the case because this isn't just about documents and signatures. This is about trust, broken in ways that may never be repaired. And after Mary finishes, the courtroom seems to exhale with her, but the damage lingers in the air like smoke from a fire still burning under the surface. As the judge calls for a short break, the family scatters in different directions, Christine wiping her face in the hallway as Janelle puts an arm around her, Cody arguing in a hushed voice with his lawyer, Robin leaning against the wall trying to steady her breathing, and Mary sitting alone on a bench staring at the floor, wondering if telling the truth somehow made her betrayer or finally free. And the narrator reminds us that this was only the first hour of the day, and already emotions are spilling into places they can no longer hide, because the truth, once spoken, cannot be pulled back. And just as everyone begins to settle, just as the tension eases for a heartbeat, the bailiff steps into the hallway with a clipboard and calls out the name of the next witness, the one none of them expected to see here today. Someone whose testimony could burn the entire case wide open. And that's where session 1 ends. The moment the bailiff calls Madison Brown, the entire hallway freezes because no one, not Cody, not Christine, not even Janelle, knew she had been subpoenaed, and the shock hits them like a cold wave rolling across the courthouse floor as Madison steps forward with a steady, almost unnervingly calm expression. Her hands clasped in front of her, her posture straight, her jaw set in a way that says she didn't come here to pick sides. She came here to tell the truth, and as she walks into the courtroom, the air shifts again, heavier, denser, like the walls themselves are bracing for what she's about to reveal, and Cody stands there in disbelief, whispering, "Why is she here? Who called her?" But his lawyer doesn't answer because even he looks blindsided, while Christine watches Madison with a mix of fear and relief, as if she hopes Madison will help her case, but is terrified of what she might say. And Janelle's eyes soften with a mother's worry because she can sense her daughter is carrying something big, something she has held inside far too long, and when Madison sits down in the witness chair, she doesn't look at any of them, not even for a moment. She keeps her gaze straight ahead, steady, determined, and the courtroom falls into an almost eerie silence as she raises her right hand and swears to tell the truth, her voice stronger than anyone expected. The attorney approaches slowly, as if aware that whatever comes out of Madison's mouth next could reshape the entire trajectory of this trial, and the first question is gentle. Madison, can you tell the court how your family dynamic affected you growing up? And Madison exhales a long, controlled breath before she begins speaking, not dramatically, not emotionally, but with a calm honesty that somehow hits harder than shouting ever could, explaining that growing up in a plural family meant constantly adapting, constantly shifting, constantly watching alliances form and break around her. And she describes moments when she felt deeply loved and others when she felt like a pawn in a much bigger game. Moments where the wives competed for attention. Moments where favoritism cut deeper than anyone admitted. And as she talks, the camera of our narration lingers on Cody's clenched jaw, Robin's darts of panic, and Christine's trembling fingers. Stay with me, because what she says next will punch the air right out of the room. Madison begins describing a memory from years back, one she says she never planned to talk about publicly, but today feels like the only chance to finally break the silence. A night when she overheard a conversation between Cody and Robin behind a closed door, a conversation where they discussed restructuring the family finances in a way that would prioritize Robin's household, a plan that didn't include full disclosure to the other wives. And Madison describes the confusion she felt, the shock, the fear of what it meant, and the internal conflict she carried as a teenager, hearing adults make decisions that could tear the whole family apart. And as she speaks, Cody shifts uncomfortably, frowning, shaking his head slightly, as if trying to deny something without actually saying it. But Madison isn't finished. She goes deeper, talking about how she later saw documents, glimpses of forms left on the table, pages with signatures she didn't understand at the time. But looking back now, she realizes those papers probably belonged to the same agreement Christine's attorney brought up earlier. And when the attorney asks, "Did you ever hear your father talk about keeping things quiet from the other wives?" Madison nods slowly and says, "Yes, more than once." And the courtroom erupts in murmurs until the judge bangs her gavel. Cody's lawyer stands quickly, objecting strongly, claiming Madison is misremembering, that she was a child, that she didn't know what she heard. But Madison raises her hand slightly, asking to finish her answer, and the judge allows it, and what comes next slices through the defense like a blade. Madison explains that she didn't just hear financial talk, she also heard frustration, resentment, and harsh words about Christine specifically. Words that left her confused and hurt at the time because she saw Christine as a loving mother figure, and hearing her father speak dismissively about her was painful and disorienting. And this lands like an earthquake across the courtroom because now the emotional betrayal aligns with the financial secrecy, creating a pattern the judge cannot ignore. And the narrator notes how Robin starts tearing up, shaking her head softly as if she wants to disappear. And just when you think Madison's done, she drops the biggest truth of all. She reveals that years later, as an adult, she confronted Cody privately, asking him about the agreement and whether the other wives knew everything. And she describes how Cody reacted. Not angrily, not defensively, but evasively, talking in circles, giving half explanations that felt rehearsed, like he was protecting something bigger than the truth. And the courtroom goes dead silent as Madison admits that she walked away from that conversation realizing for the first time that her father didn't want transparency, he wanted control, and that realization changed her relationship with him forever. At this, Cody finally breaks, standing abruptly as if he can't listen anymore, his voice cracking as he says, "That's not fair, Madison." But the judge immediately orders him to sit down, reminding him that he is not allowed to interrupt a witness, and the emotion in his eyes, anger mixed with genuine hurt, shows this trial is not just legal. It's tearing apart every remaining thread of family loyalty. Madison continues, explaining that she didn't come here to attack anyone, but she couldn't stay silent while Christine is accused of exaggerating or fabricating her fears. Because she remembers the tension in the household, the arguments behind closed doors, the shifting loyalties that left everyone walking on eggshells, and she finishes by saying, "This family broke long before Christine left. We just pretended it didn't." And the room sinks under the weight of her honesty. Christine wipes away tears. Janelle presses her hand to her chest, breathing shakily. Mary looks down, her expression full of painful recognition. And Robin looks shattered, her mascara beginning to smear as she whispers something to herself, maybe a prayer, maybe a plea. And the next twist? It hits like thunder. When Madison steps down, Christine's attorney announces the next witness, and the name sends an instant ripple of shock through every corner of the courtroom. Logan Brown! Janelle gasps, Cody pales, Christine covers her mouth, because if Madison's testimony cracked the case open, Logan's might blow it sky high. The judge calls for a 10-minute recess, and the family scatters again, the hallway thick with tension, anger, fear, and unspoken questions. Cody corners Madison outside the restroom, his voice quiet but desperate, asking, "Why would you do this? Why now?" But Madison doesn't flinch. She simply says, "Because someone had to," before walking away, leaving him standing there stunned and speechless. Meanwhile, Robin sinks into a chair in the hallway, her breathing fast, her hands shaking as she tries to process the fact that the kids, the ones she always claimed were the heart of the family, are now the ones tearing the truth open. And Christine sits beside Janelle, whispering, "This isn't what I wanted, but maybe it's what needed to happen." And Janelle nods, though her eyes are full of tears she refuses to let fall. As the bailiff steps back into the hall to call them in again, the narrator tells us that session 2 ends here, right at the edge of impact, because Logan's testimony, calmer, sharper, more adult, might expose things even the wives never knew, the kind of truths that could tip the entire case in Christine's favor or drag every one of them deeper into a darkness they never wanted to face. And that's where session 2 closes, right before the storm hits. When the bailiff calls Logan Brown to the stand, the entire courtroom shifts as if gravity itself tilts, because Logan isn't just another witness. He's the oldest, the quiet observer, the one who saw everything but rarely spoke, and as he walks forward with a slow, measured confidence, you can feel that everyone, including the judge, knows this testimony is going to cut deeper than anything said so far, and Logan takes his seat without looking at any of his parents, his hands folded calmly, his expression neutral but unreadably tense, like a man who has carried secrets for far too long and finally decided to put them down. And when he raises his right hand and swears in, his voice is steady, almost emotionless, which somehow makes everything feel more dangerous because this isn't heat of the moment anger. This is truth that has been simmering for years, waiting for the right moment to be spoken. The attorney starts softly, asking about his childhood, but Logan answers with clarity, explaining that growing up in a plural family meant learning to navigate emotional minefields before he even learned long division. And he talks about managing tension between households, being the one kids confided in, being the one who noticed when one wife was hurting or when Cody was distant. Because as the oldest, he always felt responsible, always felt like he had to hold everything together, even though he was just a kid carrying the burden of a fractured adult world. The attorney circles in on the core of the case now, asking about the agreement, and Logan immediately inhales, composing himself before saying that he didn't know about it at first, but that he learned about it in fragments over time, through overheard conversations, arguments, and this one explosive night that has stayed with him for years. He describes a moment when Christine confronted Cody privately in the kitchen, late at night, thinking the kids were asleep, accusing him of making decisions behind her back. And Logan explains how he woke up to their voices, how he heard Christine begging for transparency, and how Cody dismissed her concerns in a tone Logan had never heard before. Cold, clipped, frustrated, calling her dramatic, telling her she was imagining problems, and this isn't just testimony. This is a window into the emotional reality of their family, and the courtroom grows still, the air thickening as Logan continues. He explains how the next morning, Christine acted like nothing happened, making breakfast, smiling for the kids, pretending everything was fine. And Logan says that's when he realized the wives often hid their pain to protect the family image, to keep things functioning, but underneath, everything was cracking. Then the attorney asks the question everyone is waiting for. Did you ever directly hear discussions about keeping information from the other wives? Logan nods, swallowing hard, because he knows that once he says it, there's no taking it back, and he reveals that yes, more than once, he heard Cody and Robin talking in hushed tones behind closed doors, specifically about financial matters, property titles, and long-term plans that seemed to place Robin's household in a different category than the others. And Logan admits he didn't understand all the details at the time, but he understood the tone, the secrecy, the intention to keep things need to know, and he explains how that secrecy grew into tension that eventually seeped into every corner of the family dynamic. And at this point, Cody looks like he's seconds away from exploding, shifting in his seat, gripping the edge of the table like he's trying to hold himself back. Logan then drops something even heavier. He explains that after he became an adult, he confronted Cody about the pattern of favoritism, not just financially, but emotionally, and he recounts the moment with chilling detail. How Cody redirected the conversation, how he blamed the wives for creating unnecessary drama, how he said sometimes leaders have to make decisions others don't understand, and how that response made Logan realize the core problem wasn't the agreement. It was the belief that secrecy was justified if it protected Cody's authority. The courtroom absorbs this, the weight of years of emotional imbalance pressing down on every listener, and Robin, already fragile, begins wiping silent tears, whispering to herself as if trying to hold her world together, while Christine leans forward slightly, her breath shaking because Logan's words validate everything she tried to explain for years but was dismissed for. Then the attorney asks Logan if he believes Christine had reason to fear long-term consequences from the secret agreement, and Logan answers with complete certainty, yes, because the agreement wasn't just about finances, it was about power. It changed the balance in the family, and everyone felt it, even if they didn't know why. And if you think the tension is already suffocating, it's about to get worse. The defense stands to cross-examine, and Cody's lawyer tries to paint Logan as biased, claiming he drifted away from the family, that he resents Cody for not being as involved in later years, but Logan doesn't flinch. He answers calmly that his distance wasn't because he stopped caring. It was because he grew tired of pretending everything was perfect when it wasn't. And he describes watching the wives fall apart one by one, watching emotional exhaustion take over their lives, watching Cody prioritize one household while the other scrambled to explain his absence to their kids, and every word he speaks feels like a truth bomb dropping in the middle of the courtroom floor. When asked if he thinks Cody intentionally manipulated the family dynamic, Logan pauses, looking down at his hands for a long moment, then says, "I think Dad convinced himself he was doing what was best, but that doesn't mean he didn't hurt people." And that single sentence slices through Cody's defenses like a blade. The tension shifts again when the defense asks about Robin, implying she was unfairly targeted, and Logan responds carefully but honestly, saying he doesn't believe Robin intended harm, but that her presence, combined with secret decisions, created an environment where imbalance flourished, and he adds that the problem wasn't any one wife. It was the secrecy and lack of accountability. The judge leans back slightly, absorbing the complexity, clearly recognizing that this trial is unraveling not just a legal issue, but a decades-long emotional web no one could untangle alone. Logan is dismissed from the stand, and as he steps down, he finally looks at the wives, Christine, Janelle, Mary, with a soft, almost apologetic expression. But he doesn't look at Cody, and that silence between them speaks louder than any testimony. In the hallway during recess, Cody storms toward Logan, demanding to know why he would betray the family like this. And Logan responds with a calm that borders on heartbreaking, saying, "Telling the truth isn't betrayal. Pretending everything was fine. That was the betrayal." And Cody freezes, dumbfounded, as the words hang between them like a final verdict. Janelle hurries after Logan, hugging him tightly as tears finally break free, whispering how proud she is of him, while Christine stands off to the side and watches with an expression that combines gratitude and sorrow, knowing full well the price of truth isn't just legal, it's emotional, and Logan just paid a price that will change their family forever. And just when it seems the emotional peak has been reached, the next moment hits like lightning. Christine's attorney announces they have one more surprise witness for the day, someone whose testimony they believe will solidify the timeline, the motive, and the true nature of the secret agreement. When the name is read aloud, the courtroom erupts in gasps because it's someone no one in the Brown family expected ever to take the stand. Someone from outside of the family, but deeply connected to them. Someone who has seen everything from a distance. A former close friend of Robin's who claims she knows exactly why the agreement was created in the first place. And that's where session 3 ends, right on the brink of a revelation that could change everything. When the judge calls Alicia Warren to the stand, a stunned silence rolls across the courtroom because Alicia isn't just any outsider. She's the woman who was once so close to Robin that people joked she was practically a fifth sister wife. Someone who spent countless nights at family gatherings, someone who was there before the fractures turned into earthquakes. And as she walks forward with a composed but wary expression, you can almost feel the tension radiating from Robin, who stiffens instantly, her fingers curling around the edge of the defense table as if bracing for an avalanche she always feared might come. And Alicia steps up, her heels echoing sharply, her posture straight, her jaw set with quiet resolve, because she didn't come here to gossip. She came here to finally unload the truth she's kept bottled up for years. And when she sits down and raises her right hand to swear in, her voice is steady, but you can hear something beneath it. A tremble of old loyalty battling with newer betrayal, and the courtroom's air thickens again, charged like a sky moments before lightning strikes. The attorney approaches carefully, aware they are handling the most volatile witness yet, and begins by asking Alicia how she met Robin. And Alicia explains that they meet long before the sister wives' cameras ever rolled, back when Robin was struggling through her first marriage, and Alicia supported her emotionally, helping with childcare, finances, and moral support, becoming someone Robin trusted deeply, someone she confided in during her darkest moments. And as she speaks, Robin's face shifts from fear to heartbreak, her lips trembling as if she wants to object to stop this, but she stays silent under the judge's watchful gaze. The attorney then shifts toward how Alicia remained close to Robin when she joined the Brown family, and Alicia explains she was there during early discussions, celebrations, and late-night talks, and she began noticing patterns, subtle at first, then glaring, where Cody gave Robin more time, more attention, more inclusion in decision-making than the other wives. And Alicia emphasizes that while Robin didn't initially seek favoritism, she gradually became comfortable with it, and over time the dynamic changed, creating a divide the rest of the family didn't see clearly until it was too late. When the attorney brings up the agreement, the entire room holds its breath, waiting for the bombshell, and Alicia inhales sharply before revealing the secret she's been holding on to. That she saw drafts of the agreement months before the family knew anything about it, because Robin confided in her about it, explaining that Cody wanted to restructure the family in a way that protected the long-term stability of her children. And Alicia clarifies that Robin didn't frame it as taking from the other wives, but as ensuring her kids were never left vulnerable the way she once felt in her first marriage. And Alicia says she warned her, telling her transparency was the only way for the family to survive, but Robin insisted Cody planned to discuss it at the right time. Though that time, as they all know, never came. Then comes the moment that hits harder than anything yet. Alicia reveals that Robin told her in private that the agreement was partly motivated by fear that the other wives, especially Christine and Janelle, would one day break away and leave the family financially unstable. And Alicia continues, explaining that Robin believed she and Cody were the core keeping the family intact, and if Christine or Janelle ever left, the financial responsibility would fall disproportionately onto Robin's household. And as she says this, the courtroom almost vibrates with shock, because this not only exposes motivation, it exposes a level of distrust and planning that the other wives never knew existed. Cody's face bleaches of color, his mouth open in incredulity, while Christine sits frozen, tears welling in her eyes, her breathing shallow and rapid, and Janelle's face collapses, her heartbreak evident in the clench of her jaw and the quiver in her hands, while Mary closes her eyes as if everything she had once suspected but never confirmed is now being spelled out in painful detail, and Robin breaks, her tears spilling over as she whispers under her breath, "I didn't mean for it to be like this." Her entire body trembling, her guilt finally cracking through the defenses she held all trial long. The attorney proceeds gently but firmly, asking Alicia whether Robin expressed concern that Christine was becoming increasingly unhappy in the marriage, and Alicia nods, revealing that Robin told her she feared Christine was emotionally unpredictable and capable of making sudden decisions. And Alicia admits she told Robin that if she felt that way, the solution was communication, not secret agreements. And Alicia's voice tightens as she adds that she began distancing herself from Robin once she realized the secrecy wasn't temporary but intentional, and she felt the other wives were being treated unfairly without their knowledge. And just when you think Alicia's confession is the peak, she reveals something even more explosive. She explains that shortly before Christine left the family, Robin reached out to her in a panic, saying she feared Christine had found out about the agreement, and Alicia recounts how Robin begged her to deny everything if asked, to protect the family unity, and Alicia admits she refused, telling Robin she wouldn't lie to protect decisions that hurt others, and that moment shattered their friendship permanently. So silent does the courtroom become, you could hear dust settle as Alicia describes Robin's desperation, her fear of losing Cody, her fear of losing the family structure she had grown accustomed to, and Alicia says softly that Robin didn't mean harm. She was acting out of trauma and fear, but harm happened anyway. The defense rises to cross-examine, asserting Alicia is a disgruntled ex-friend with personal motives, but Alicia remains calm, explaining she has never spoken publicly about Robin, never sold stories, never sought attention. She only came forward because she couldn't stay silent while the truth was being warped, and she adds that she has nothing to gain and everything to lose by being here, which only strengthens her credibility. Robin finally breaks her silence, calling out in a trembling voice, "Alicia, why would you do this to me?" And the judge immediately commands order, but the damage is done. Robin's cry exposes her fear, her heartbreak, and her guilt all in one raw moment. During a short recess, Robin collapses onto a bench in the hallway, sobbing into her hands as Cody tries to comfort her, but even his touch seems to unsettle her, as if she knows deep down that the truth Alicia revealed isn't something she can talk her way out of. And across the hall, Christine watches with a mix of sorrow and vindication, whispering to Janelle, "I didn't want her destroyed. I just wanted the truth." And Janelle nods, wiping tears from her face, because this trial isn't just exposing lies, it's exposing pain no one knew how deep it ran. Meanwhile, Mary stands alone against the wall, silent as if every piece of the past she buried is resurfacing at once, while Logan and Madison sit quietly nearby, observing the aftermath of a family cracking under the weight of secrets they carried for too many years. And then the cliffhanger hits like a hammer. As everyone prepares to return to the courtroom, Christine's attorney steps aside to take a phone call, her face shifting from confusion to shock to urgency, and she rushes toward the judge's chambers, whispering something so quietly no one else can hear. And moments later, the judge calls both legal teams forward, closing the courtroom doors as the family anxiously watches from their seats. After several tense minutes, the judge returns and announces that a new piece of evidence has surfaced. One so significant that it must be reviewed before testimony. Continues. And the way Christine's attorney glances at Cody tells us everything. This evidence isn't just important. It could change the entire case. And that's where session 4 ends. Right on the brink of a revelation that could tear open the truth far wider than anyone expected. When the judge announces that a critical new piece of evidence has surfaced, the courtroom vibrates with a low hum of shock. The kind of tension that makes even the air feel heavier, and as everyone shifts in their seats, eyes darting, breaths tightening, you can see Cody lean toward his lawyer in a panic, whispering frantically, "What evidence? What now?" But his attorney only shakes his head, equally blindsided, while Christine sits frozen, her fingers pressed against her lips as if afraid to breathe too loudly, and Janelle places a trembling hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Whatever it is, you're not alone." And Mary, sitting slightly apart, watches the chaos unfold with an expression that blends exhaustion and grim anticipation, knowing deep down that whatever comes next will finally expose the truth they were never allowed to see. And as the judge returns, she carries a sealed envelope in her hand, placing it gently on the bench like it contains a ticking bomb. And the entire courtroom stiffens as she explains that the evidence was submitted anonymously early this morning, validated by the clerk, and pertains directly to the disputed agreement, and Robin's reaction is instant and explosive. Her eyes widen, her hand flies to her mouth, and she shakes her head violently, as if trying to reject reality before it even arrives, whispering, "No, no, not this." And Cody reaches for her arm, but she flinches away, her fear raw and consuming. The judge opens the envelope slowly, sliding out several documents clipped together, yellowed pages, handwritten notes, and what looks like a draft contract, and the silence becomes suffocating as she reads through them one by one, her expression shifting from neutrality to concern to disbelief, and finally she lifts her gaze and says, "These documents appear to include early drafts of the agreement in question, complete with handwritten annotations from both Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robin Brown." And the gasp that erupts across the room feels like an earthquake made of breath and shock, because this isn't hearsay. This isn't memory. This is physical proof, dated and detailed. Christine's attorney asks to approach, reviewing the pages with guarded satisfaction, nodding slowly as she recognizes handwriting, dates, intentions clearly spelled out. And then she asks the question that sends ice down everyone's spine. "Your Honor, may we request these be read aloud for the record?" And the judge agrees, adjusting her glasses as she begins reading the first page, a draft labeled Family Resource Consolidation Proposal. And the words that spill into the room are more brutal than anyone expected, outlining a financial structure that funnels the majority of the family's assets toward Robin's household under the justification of stability for the youngest children. And as she reads on, the language becomes more explicit, referencing concerns about Christine's dissatisfaction, potential departures, and preemptive allocation of resources should she choose to separate, which causes Christine to break down, tears falling silently as she exchanges a devastated look with Janelle, who grips her hand like she's holding someone from drowning. But then comes the single line that shatters everything. The judge reads a handwritten note in the margin that says, in Cody's unmistakable scrawl, "Better they don't know the details, too emotional, too reactive. Discuss only if necessary." And that sentence hits the courtroom like an explosion, causing even the spectators in the back to gasp, as Cody's face drains of all color, his eyes filling with panic as he stammers, "That's taken out of context. Those were notes, not decisions." But the judge silences him sternly. Then she reveals more of Robin's handwritten annotations, expertly worded yet unmistakably supportive of secrecy, such as one saying, "Agreed. Wait until timing is right. Christine is unpredictable. Janelle is analytical but persuadable. Mary is compliant." But as those words are exposed to the courtroom, Mary covers her mouth in horror, her shoulders shaking as she faces the truth that she was seen not as family, but as a weakness to be exploited. And Janelle's face goes from heartbreak to fury, her eyes burning with the betrayal so heavy she can barely remain seated, and Christine, hearing the word unpredictable used against her in private plans about her own life, breaks into quiet sobs that echo painfully in the silent courtroom. Meanwhile, Robin collapses into her chair, crying uncontrollably, repeating, "I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that," over and over until the words dissolve into gasps, but the damage is done. The truth is no longer something she can hide behind tears or explanations because it's in ink, in her handwriting, undeniable. The judge goes on to read a final paragraph that states once implemented, the agreement would allow for the gradual consolidation of assets under a single household leadership model, which would over time isolate Christine's and Janelle's financial independence if they left the marriage, and the whole room erupts into whispers, outrage, and stunned disbelief. Christine's attorney rises to her feet, her voice steady but sharp, addressing the court. "Your Honor, this is not miscommunication. This is deliberate concealment. This is premeditated financial manipulation designed to trap my client in a system that no longer served her." And for the first time since the beginning of the trial, even the judge seems visibly disturbed by what she's read, taking a long, steadying breath before she speaks. The defense tries to object, saying these drafts were never finalized, that conversations evolved, that the family dynamic changed over time. But the judge replies that the existence of drafts proves intent and shows a clear plan was concealed from the other wives, and she orders a forensic analysis to authenticate handwriting, dates, and authorship, although it's already obvious what the results are going to be. Cody's expression starts to crumble, anger melting into fear, fear slipping into regret as he finally looks at Christine with something like heartbreak, whispering, "I didn't want to hurt you. You have to believe me." But Christine doesn't even glance at him. She's staring straight ahead, her body trembling, her face pale because she's hearing the confirmation of every suspicion, every fear, every sleepless night when she wondered if she was losing her mind. Janelle stands abruptly during recess, storms out into the hallway, her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles go white, and when Logan follows her, she breaks, sobbing into his chest, whispering, "How could he do this to us? How could he plan this behind our backs?" And Logan just holds her silent, heartbroken, but steady. Robin stays inside, head down, tears streaming, mumbling apologies to no one and everyone. And Cody kneels beside her, whispering frantically, "We can fix this. Tell them we had good reasons." But she just shakes her head, unable to find words strong enough to defend what's now exposed. Mary sits alone on a bench outside the courtroom, staring into space with the hollow realization that she wasn't abandoned accidentally. She was written out in ink, and the final blow is just around the corner, the twist that will close Session 5 with the sound of thunder. Christine's attorney returns from speaking with the clerk and quietly informs the judge that the anonymous source who submitted the documents left a note claiming they have more, including emails, voicemails, and possibly evidence that the agreement wasn't just an idea, but that steps toward executing it had already been taken before Christine left the family. And the second that judge reads the last line of that note out loud, this family deserves to know everything before the truth is buried permanently. The whole courtroom erupts into chaos because now the question isn't just who hid the truth, it's who finally decided to expose it. And that's where Session 5 ends, right on the cliff's edge of a revelation that threatens to burn the entire foundation of the Brown family to the ground. The moment Session 6 begins, the courtroom is still reeling with the aftershocks of the anonymous evidence drop, and as everyone slowly filters back into their seats, there is a strange, heavy quiet. Like everyone is holding their breath at the same time, because no one knows who the whistleblower is, no one knows what else they're hiding, and no one knows how much darker this case is about to get. And when the judge enters, her expression is sharper, more alert, carrying the weight of someone who understands that what comes next could change the entire trajectory of the trial. And she taps her gavel gently, calling the room to order as Christine, Janelle, and Mary file in, their steps unsteady but determined, while Cody and Robin take their seats with the kind of nervous energy that radiates guilt and fear all at once, and even the court reporter looks like she's bracing for impact. The judge begins by announcing that due to the unexpected gravity of the documents received, the court has approved a limited investigation into the source and legitimacy of the remaining evidence claimed to exist. And the mere mention of remaining evidence sends a visible ripple through the rows of spectators who lean forward, hungry for whatever revelations might come next. Christine's attorney rises, requesting permission to question Cody about the content of the drafts before any further delays, and the judge agrees, stating that clarity is urgently needed. Cody is called again to the stand, but this time, he doesn't walk the same confident path he did earlier, chest held high. His shoulders have slumped, his eyes dart nervously, his jaw tightens in ways he can't hide, and Robin squeezes a tissue so hard it tears apart in her hands. Once sworn in, Cody tries to maintain composure, but when Christine's attorney places the first draft document on the podium and asks, "Mr. Brown, is this your handwriting?" His face twists and he hesitates too long, for just a second, but long enough for the courtroom to feel it, before muttering, "It looks like mine, but I can't say for sure." The attorney pounces, placing a second page beside it, the one with the damning note about keeping the wives in the dark, and asks again, "Is this your handwriting?" Cody swallows, glances desperately at his lawyer, then says, "It might be, but these were never finalized, never intended to be a plan." The attorney presses harder, asking whether he and Robin ever discussed consolidating assets or creating some financial structure that constrained the other's autonomy. And Cody gets defensive, raising his voice, saying, "We talked about possibilities. We talked about ideas. We were trying to stabilize the family." And the attorney cuts him off with, "By isolating them financially," and the judge has to intervene to calm the tension. Christine is watching him with a stare so hollow, so wounded, that it feels like the floor beneath her has cracked in half, and Janelle's hands are clutching her chair so forcefully that her knuckles shake, while Mary silently wipes away tears that keep welling up uncontrollably. Then comes the bombshell. Christine's attorney presents a third document that wasn't enclosed in the envelope but had been acquired. Earlier in the discovery process, a typed email draft addressed to an attorney whose name the family recognizes, discussing strategic preparation and phase-by-phase implementation. And when she asks Cody if he wrote it, he stutters, panics, and finally admits yes, but it was just a draft, nothing more. And that confession sends the courtroom into a frenzy of whispers. But it's the shock that arrives when Christine's attorney reads aloud the final lines of that email draft. Must ensure Christine remains unaware until a decision is finalized. Too emotional, might leave prematurely. And that's when Christine breaks. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a soft, quiet breakdown. A trembling collapse inward, because hearing in Cody's own words that he wanted to keep her uninformed, not for her protection, but to prevent her from making choices for herself, is a wound deeper than anything she expected to confront here. The judge calls a brief recess so Christine can collect herself, and during that time, the hallway becomes a war zone of emotions. Christine sobbing into Mykelti's arms, Janelle pacing back and forth furiously, muttering, "He planned this. He actually planned this," while Mary leans against the wall with her head down, whispering, all this time I thought I was the problem." And Robin, sitting on a bench with mascara-streaked cheeks, keeps whispering, "We were trying to protect the family. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." But her voice carries no conviction now, only fear. Meanwhile, Cody stands alone near the corner, his lawyer attempting to strategize, but failing to get through the fog of panic clouding his mind. And you can hear him saying, "They weren't supposed to find those drafts. They weren't supposed to," before his voice trails off. When the court resumes, the judge declares that they must continue, and Christine's attorney calls an unexpected witness. Mariah, Mary's child, who steps forward with a posture that speaks to both determination and exhaustion. The courtroom falls silent as Mariah says she has information regarding early conversations between Cody and Robin about restructuring the family dynamic long before Christine left. And as she describes overhearing fragments of conversations, phrases like focus on one household, phase out shared assets, too much emotional chaos from the others, the courtroom is hit with a new wave of betrayal, because now it's not just documents or drafts, but testimony from someone inside the inner circle. Cody tries to object, saying Mariah misunderstood, but the judge overrules him, citing the consistency between the documents and the testimony. Then Mariah reveals something that sends shockwaves through the room. She says that she once confronted Robin privately about noticing shifts in family financial discussions, and Robin told her, "You're too young to understand the long-term plan," which causes Robin's head to snap up, eyes wide, whispering, "I never said that. Mariah, please." But the damage is done. The seeds of manipulation are now visible from multiple angles. And as the tension builds, Christine's attorney reveals one more bombshell. An expert has preliminarily analyzed the handwriting on the drafts and found high consistency between the notes and both Cody's and Robin's handwriting styles, which means authentication is as good as certain. Cody's face bleaches of color even further, and Robin starts sobbing loudly, her whole body shaking, while the onlookers sit with a mix of shock and vindication. The judge, visibly disturbed by the pattern that's emerging, demands the immediate submission of the drafts to a forensic document examiner, expedites the timeline for reviewing the anonymous evidence, and, most devastatingly, announces that the court is now considering whether the concealment of these plans constitutes intentional fraud within a plural marriage structure. The word fraud slices through the air like a blade, and Christine, Janelle, and Mary exchange looks of disbelievement, pain, and grim justice, finally catching up. By the time the session comes to a close, the courtroom is brimming with tension, fear, and shattered illusions, and the lasting image in everyone's mind is Cody and Robin at their table, holding each other's hands tightly, not out of love, but out of terror as they prepare for the storm that Session 7 is bound to unleash. The air in the courtroom for Session 7 feels so oppressively thick that even the onlookers fidget uncomfortably in their seats, as if everyone can feel that the case has reached a point where nothing can return to normal again. And when the judge steps in, her expression firm and collected, undeniably grave, reminds the whole room that this is no longer just a family dispute. It has grown into a possible criminal matter, and that realization sends a chilling ripple across the room as Christine grasps the edge of the table with trembling fingers. Janelle sits forward with a fierce determination in her eyes. Mary clutches her hands tightly in her lap as if holding herself together, while Cody and Robin exchange a silent, panicked glance, as though silently asking each other how everything spiraled so far beyond their control. The judge then announces that the forensic team has provided a preliminary verbal update, confirming that both Cody's and Robin's handwriting strongly aligns with the notes found in the draft documents, and the moment those words echo through the courtroom, a gasp erupts from the crowd, and Robin's entire body caves in, her face flushing red as she shakes her head rapidly, whispering, "No, no, no, they weren't supposed to. This isn't fair," while Cody's jaw clenches so tightly that a muscle spasms along his cheek. Christine watches them, silent but profoundly shattered, because this confirmation means everything she feared. Everything she tried to explain for years wasn't paranoia, wasn't insecurity, wasn't emotional overreaction. It was truth, and that truth is now sitting at the center of a courtroom where hiding is no longer possible. Christine's attorney stands and announces that they are prepared to introduce a witness who will speak not only to the drafts, but to the pattern of secretive planning that began long before the marriage began to publicly unravel. And when the judge nods for the witness to enter, everyone turns as Logan, Janelle's oldest son, steps into the courtroom, carrying a solemn, controlled expression that showed he didn't want to be here, but came because the truth mattered more than his discomfort. Logan's testimony begins with slow, steady breaths. He explains that he lived with the family during the years when tensions began to quietly sharpen beneath the surface, and he describes overhearing conversations between Cody and Robin late at night behind half-closed doors, conversations filled with phrases like streamlining resources, reducing chaos, and needing structure. But what really stunned him most was hearing Robin say, "We can't keep letting the others have equal control when it's too chaotic." And though Logan admits he didn't understand the full context at the time, he knew enough to know this wasn't a group conversation. This was a private, strategic discussion about restructuring the family without the other wives' involvement. As Logan speaks, Robin begins crying harder, repeating, "That's not how it happened! That's not how it happened!" But her whispers are drowned out by the power of his calm, steady voice. Logan also reveals that at one point, Cody had asked him casually, but with intent, how the family finances could be reorganized in a way that protects the family leader. And when Logan had asked what that meant, Cody laughed it off, saying, "You'll understand when you're older." But Logan says on the stand, "I understand now. He wasn't protecting the family. He was protecting control." And those words set the entire courtroom buzzing with murmurs. The judge quiets the room and asks Logan directly whether he believes Christine, Janelle, and Mary were purposely left out of financial discussions that affected the entire family, and Logan answers with heartbreaking certainty, "Yes. They were excluded because their opinions would have stopped the plan. The weight of that sentence makes Christine cover her mouth with her hand, a quiet sob escaping, and Janelle nods slowly, tears filling her eyes, but her expression hardened, not in sadness now, but in fury finally reaching the surface. The retention line, and remember, every hidden truth eventually claws its way to the light, no matter how deep it was buried. The next blow comes when Christine's attorney reveals that the anonymous source has sent another message through confidential channels, confirming they will reveal themselves today and the courtroom. Reacts like a spark has landed in a pile of dry leaves. Everyone straightens, murmurs rise, and Cody visibly tenses, fear slicing across his face like an open wound, while Robin grips the table so hard her knuckles turn white. The judge instructs the bailiff to escort the anonymous source into the courthouse, and the entire room waits in a heavy silence, a silence so sharp it feels like it could cut. When the doors open again, every head turns to see Gwen, Christine's daughter, walking in with steady footsteps, her chin lifted, her eyes unwavering as she approaches the witness stand. The shock is instantaneous. Christine gasps, her hand flying to her chest. Janelle covers her mouth with disbelief. Mary whispers, "Oh my God," while Cody and Robin both go pale, realizing just how deeply the truth has been unraveling behind their backs. Gwen swears in, sits down, and with a voice that trembles only for the first few words, tells the court that she was the one who found the drafts months ago while helping pack boxes from Robin and Cody's old office. And though she didn't know what they were at first, she recognized her father's handwriting right off, and something inside her told her she needed to keep them safe. She explains how, after reading the drafts carefully, she realized the truth. They weren't accidental scribbles or random thoughts. They were structured, detailed plans to minimize the financial and emotional power of the other wives. And when she confronted Robin about it quietly in a hallway one day, Robin panicked, grabbed her arm, and said, "You don't understand what you're looking at. Don't make this worse." Which Gwen says was the moment she realized silence was no longer an option. Cody shakily whispers, "Gwen, why would you do this?" But Gwen doesn't even look at him when she responds, "Because Mom deserved the truth. Because all of them did." Her eyes shift to Christine, who breaks down in new sobs, this time not from betrayal, but from the unimaginable strength her daughter just showed. Gwen continues, revealing that she wasn't the only one who knew something was wrong. She had spoken to siblings who also noticed weird shifts, private meetings, unexplained documents, half-finished financial spreadsheets saved under strange folder names, and the overall pattern always pointed back to the same thing: Cody and Robin trying to centralize control. When asked why she sent the evidence anonymously, Gwen says she feared retaliation, feared being blamed, feared the family fracturing even more. But the turning point came when she saw Christine cry alone in her new house one night, apologizing to herself for never being enough. And Gwen's voice cracks as she says, "I realized the truth was the only way she'd ever stop blaming herself." The courtroom is in emotional ruins by now. Spectators wiping tears, Christine's shoulders shaking uncontrollably, Janelle visibly trembling with restrained fury, Mary silently sobbing, and Cody looking shattered, defeated, exposed in a way he has never been. Robin hides her face in her hands, whispering prayers or apologies. No one can tell which. The judge finally calls for order, but even she looks affected, her voice tight as she says, "Gwen's actions were brave and deeply consequential." But then comes the cliffhanger. The judge says, because of the overwhelming evidence, the court is now preparing to consider charging Cody and Robin with intentional financial misconduct. And as the words echo through the courtroom, a loud gasp surges through the crowd. And before anyone can process the shock of that announcement, the judge adds that Session 8 will address the most critical question of the entire case. Were these plans simply unethical, or were they criminal? The moment she says it, the courtroom erupts, and Session 7 ends with an image no one will ever forget. Christine holding Gwen tightly, both crying, while Cody and Robin sit frozen, staring ahead like they're watching their entire world collapse brick by brick. Session 8. The courtroom feels electric, charged with anticipation, tension, and raw emotion. As if every wall, every wooden bench, every whispering spectator is holding its breath, because this is the final confrontation, the moment when all the secrets, all the plans, all the betrayals will finally face the light. And as the judge calls the court to order, the Brown family sits rigid, eyes fixed forward, hearts pounding, while the attorneys arrange documents, shuffle papers, and the air hums with a collective awareness that today nothing can be hidden, nothing can be denied. Christine sits in her seat, trembling but resolute, her hands clasped tightly around a tissue as tears slide down her cheeks, and beside her, Janelle leans forward, jaw clenched, eyes burning with a mixture of anger and grief, while Mary quietly wipes her own tears, whispering prayers under her breath, steadying herself, because after years of feeling invisible, ignored, and powerless, this session could finally vindicate them. Across the aisle, Cody fidgets, his hands clenching and unclenching on the table. Robin sitting next to him, head bowed, mascara-streaked cheeks pressed into her palms, muttering apologies under her breath, knowing the walls they built are crumbling, knowing the truth has reached a point from which there is no turning back. The judge begins by acknowledging the overwhelming volume of evidence presented, authenticated drafts, emails, voice messages, and first-hand testimonies from children, witnesses, and former close friends. And she emphasizes that the court will now focus not on the family drama, but on whether the concealment and manipulation rise to the level of intentional misconduct or potential criminality, and the words hang in the air like a guillotine poised to fall. Christine's attorney rises, calm but fierce, and begins a methodical presentation, walking the court through every piece of evidence, linking each document, each annotation, each private conversation to the documented intent to restructure family assets without the knowledge or consent of the other wives, highlighting the consistent pattern of secrecy and control, and pointing out that while Cody and Robin claimed intentions of family stability, the consistent exclusion and manipulation created emotional and financial damage that cannot be ignored. As the attorney speaks, Christine's face shifts, initially grief-stricken, then gradually hardening into determination, her eyes glinting with the fire of someone who has been wronged for years, and Janelle and Mary mirror that intensity, their bodies leaning forward, hands gripping the table edges as though bracing against the storm, finally hitting their side. Cody attempts to interrupt, protesting that intentions were misunderstood, that the drafts were never finalized, but the attorney methodically dismantles each objection, presenting authenticated drafts, emails, and eyewitness testimony that consistently contradict Cody and Robin's narrative, revealing a pattern of deliberate planning. And as each revelation unfolds, Cody's confidence erodes further, his attempts at explanation growing increasingly defensive and strained. Robin starts to sob openly, her voice cracking as she mutters, "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." But the courtroom is unmoved by excuses now. The facts are undeniable. Then the attorney calls attention to the impact on Christine, Janelle, and Mary, recounting the emotional toll, sleepless nights, financial instability, and the constant fear of being blindsided. Christine's tears now mix with quiet rage, Janelle's jaw tightens until it aches, and Mary finally whispers aloud, "I just wanted fairness. Just fairness," reminding everyone in the courtroom of the human cost behind the legal documents, the way these were not just pages of ink, but instruments that shaped lives. And here comes the retention booster line. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought in silence, but silence cannot protect the guilty forever. Then Christine's attorney introduces as final evidence a recorded voicemail between Cody and Robin, discussing the timing of presenting information to Christine and Janelle, emphasizing minimizing their reactions, and even joking about controlling the narrative before the court. The courtroom gasps as the voices are played aloud. Cody's tone calm but controlling, Robin's voice nervous yet complicit, confirming beyond doubt that these were premeditated discussions designed to manipulate. The effect is immediate. Christine's shoulders shake violently, Janelle's eyes widen, and Mary's hands cover her face as the words sink in, and the spectators whisper among themselves, shocked at the level of calculated deceit. Cody's lawyer tries to object, calling it unauthenticated hearsay, but the judge stops him, pointing out that the recording was verified by forensic audio experts and matches prior statements and handwriting samples, and she stresses that it directly demonstrates intent, which is central to determining misconduct. With evidence now unambiguously against them, Cody and Robin sit in near silence, holding each other's hands but barely speaking, eyes fixed on the floor as if willing the walls to swallow them. Christine stands, her voice shaking but firm, and makes this emotional declaration, not only to the evidence, but to the betrayal, to the pain of years of feeling unheard, and to the courage it took for her to step forward to pursue truth in a family that kept telling her she overreacted. Janelle and Mary echo her sentiments, vocalizing the collective pain buried for decades, reminding this courtroom that this case is as much about emotional justice as it is about legal accountability. The judge listens, nodding his head slightly, and then Cody is given one more chance to answer, but his words stumble out brokenly, defensively, and tearfully. I thought I was protecting everyone. I never wanted to hurt anyone. It was supposed to keep the family together. But Christine gently interrupts through her tears. Protecting is not hiding, Cody. Protecting is sharing. You hid, you manipulated, you decided for us what we should know, and that is the betrayal we've carried for years. The words hang heavy in the room, a weight that feels like it will never lift, and Robin buries her face into her hands, whispering, I didn't know. I didn't mean to. But nobody can take back the pain already inflicted. Next comes the final emotional pivot. The judge says, after reviewing all evidence, hearing testimony, and considering the patterns of secrecy, exclusion, and premeditation, she will deliberate if the actions by Cody and Robin were intentional misconduct and financial manipulation. And the courtroom is instructed that the decision will decide not only legal consequences, but also acknowledgement of emotional harm caused over decades. The tension is unbearable as it seems. Everyone realizes the verdict could rewrite the family's history forever. Whispers erupt outside the courtroom. Camera flashes go off, and family members hug each other in silent solidarity, knowing that the truth is finally out, but the verdict still hangs in the balance while Cody and Robin sit frozen, their hands clasped together but helpless, staring at the judge with the unsaid understanding of their choices, bringing them to this precipice. And lastly, before he adjourns, the judge turns slightly, looks over the courtroom, and asks a simple question. One that hangs in the air like a challenge, tugging at thoughts of reflection and outrage and introspection all at once. How far can secrecy go in the name of family before it becomes betrayal? The courtroom is silent. The question is reflected in everyone's mind, in the hearts of both betrayed and guilty, and the camera, or in this case, the narrative, leaves us there at the edge of resolution, knowing that the family will never be the same, knowing that every choice, every secret, every hidden word has finally been cast into the light, and the audience is left with the undeniable truth that sometimes the most devastating courtroom battles are not about the law. They are about love and trust and the price of betrayal.